right, we're live. So this is a happy story. God, we need that. You can't tell you. What's your name?
Misty Murphy.
And you are?
David Murphy.
Misty Murphy and David Murphy. Okay, how many children have you got?
2.
And how old are they?
22 and 16.
And they've never had a vaccine in their life?
No.
Ever?
No.
Vitamin K?
No.
Why?
Because I worked for a chiropractor from the time I was 16 until the time I had my babies. And she educated us on the dangers. And so I researched for myself. And we chose to go a different path. Despite having no support from family and family being all medical minded and not supporting our decisions.
Right, now tell me about your children.
Mm-hmm.
Are they on medication?
No.
Any anxiety medication?
Oh, no. Our daughter's 22 and she's lived on her own for 2.5 years. She graduated college early. We homeschooled all the way through and traveled.
Do they have autism?
No.
Do they have lots of ear infections?
Never.
Okay.
Not as healthy as you could get for kids.
Are they paralysed anywhere?
No.
I mean, this is what we're dealing with every day.
I know, right. Every day, it's what you're talking about, yeah.
Did they have speech delay?
Absolutely not.
Did they have speech delay?
No.
Did they have measles, mumps, rubella, chicken pox?
No.
So they didn't even get the illness. They got nothing.
No, and we went to a chicken pox party and didn't even get it.
That's what people don't realise. People are like, it's so infectious, you're going to die. Do you know how hard it is to catch measles, everyone?
Yeah.
I went to loads of measles parties and disappointed my parents by not catching them.
Right?
That's what it was like in those days.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, so they're alive.
They are alive and they're well traveled and been in lots of countries and nations that vaccines were required and they didn't have them.
How did they get through COVID with the peer pressure of get COVID shot? How did they get through that?
Well, my daughter is director of operations for Chick-fil-A and she just said she wasn't going to do it and she didn't do it. She didn't put her mask on and she did not take the vaccine and she encouraged other people that she worked with to not take the vaccine. And my husband works in a prison, one of Ohio's prisons.
Do you?
Yes.
And
What do you do? Wait. What do you do in a prison? That's fascinating.
I'm a network administrator now. So I've been here 23 years. And when COVID came, it was just, it's obviously went through the protocol of, masking and testing. And they didn't require a vaccine. They weren't going to require it, but they highly encouraged it.
What about the inmates? Did they have to have the shot?
They didn't have to have it. There again, they're incarcerated, they're stuck, and it was, highly, and obviously, if you want to say highly encouraged to take it. So, the majority, I think, did do that, but, for the most part, you're under custody and control, so it's kind of like, hey, here, we're offering you this, just take it, and most of them do, so, it was a lot of like I said, the masking and stuff was pretty much everybody. I didn't, or as best as I could. For the most part, I was like, I didn't, and they wanted to test all the time. They did have different protocols between people who were not vaccinated and versus vaccinated.
The badge colors were different.
Yeah, they actually did have created a badge if you had your vaccine. And I just told them from the very beginning, even from the testing standpoint and from the vaccine part, it's like if it becomes mandated, then I'm done. So I guess we'll just cross that bridge when it happens. We never wavered on that, and we've had many discussions about that. As far as what we would do and that kind of a thing, I just didn't worry about it. It is what it is. So.
But you didn't get the shot.
Oh no.
And you didn't. Did they make you stick that thing up your nose? The PC.
That's what they started with the test of doing that. They want everybody to test once a week, and that you had to do it. And if it came back, of course, if it came back negative, positive, all that, whatever happens with the protocol. And that's the first thing I ask when they ask about the testing, because it would be like, well, if you refuse and you're sent home, of course, there's a disciplinary track that follows. If you do it, basically you'd be fired within a week if you refuse to test. So let's just.
He forged his.
Let's just say there's many ways.
We're live.
Let's just say
I can't edit that out. Okay.
There's many ways you can take a test. So to.
All right. Anyway, moving on from this subject right now, because children's health do not support fraudulent activities.
Yes. No, we didn't. I didn't forge anything.
No.
I took the test.
Okay. All right. Good. Oh no! Wait. I was going to ask you a question. I've completely forgotten now. Oh. Do you think? Are they already bringing masks and getting hyped up, ready for the?
They haven't yet. Although what I have noticed is, though, they were doing the fecal matter test So they instituted
The
testing.
poop test. Do you know about
through,
that?
Through the waste. Did you know that? So they instituted and I know several states were doing it. I know when they would they would test the wastewater.
Ew.
They
Yeah.
would test it. They were saying that they could, determine through the wastewater testing, like potential outbreaks. That was their
The prevalence of COVID
yes,
in the
the-
So they were
in the
actually doing
field.
that. I've
Oh,
read
yes,
about it.
they were testing, which we didn't know at first. So they had been testing like for over a month when they finally told us that, hey, we're doing this. My point in saying this is now, so here we are, 3 years or so, 2.5, 3 years removed, and we still have now up where the main lobby is where everybody comes in, that they're still doing the wastewater treatment as of now, or like a zero, whatever. Levels are okay. So but it's still there as a, hey, you never know.
But we're not going to do that again, are we?
Oh, we're not.
No, we're done.
So I hope so.
Yeah, come on, we are.
Hope so.
We are.
The American people are just going to say no.
I hope.
Yeah, we do.
So.
Anyway, this
Yes.
is supposed to be a whole thing about how healthy your two children
Yes,
are. And
right,
then,
right.
Well, it was just fascinating. You work
Yes.
in prison, blah, blah. What else do you want to say?
Well, our daughter was also in college in 2020, just finishing. She was a commuter, so she did not live on campus, but she was a student athlete and played soccer. And she was one of only 2 girls on their soccer team who did not get vaccinated and refused to mask and vaccinate. So she was not allowed to travel on away games to a couple of their games because she wasn't masked and didn't test. So she went through that. And then our son, 16, he worked at Chick-fil-A, a different Chick-fil-A than his sister works at. But he was the only one at his store that didn't mask, and they made him work outside. He was not allowed to work inside during the time he was working, when masks were required. So that's.
But
how
your
he
children
worked.
stood firm.
They stood
Yeah.
firm.
That's pretty impressive.
Yes. And my son's club soccer team, when they were trying to make us sit in the boxes and stay 6 feet apart.
Outside.
We didn't participate in that. We sat wherever we wanted, and we were ejected from several fields for not masking and not sitting 6 feet apart. So, and our kids lived, and they can still play soccer.
Somehow they survived.
Yeah, that's right. And you're all going forward like that.
Yeah.
And
Our
they
son actually just had knee reconstruction because of a soccer injury on June 14th, and so that was our first experience with hospital protocol since COVID.
Well, actually, no, it was before when our daughter.
Oh yeah, she got hurt first.
During the whole COVID,
Yeah.
when it was still big in the hospital, she dislocated her elbow, so she had to be taken by squad to one of the local hospitals in Columbus.
And she
it
refused the
was-
mask in the squad.
and said
Even in
no, and-
immense pain, she refused it. And then we got in there, they wouldn't allow him to come into the hospital, even though she was crying and screaming for her dad. They would not allow him to come
So
in.
she just refused to put the mask on.
Yeah.
Well, I walked into the hospital. Because at the time I didn't know. All I got was a phone call. Said she'd been taken to the hospital. She was at a trampoline park and didn't know what was wrong at the time. So I left work and drove to the hospital and just parked in the emergency room and went in the
They said because
emergency
she was an
room door
adult, he
and-
couldn't come in.
And so I walked in and the girl was processing me over. Of course, the security guy wanted to make a big issue of it, and so did I. So,
Who won? You or the security guard?
well, I didn't go in, although where he told me to go, I didn't. So we kind of had to go, I think. He told me I had to leave and go back to my car, and I said, I'm not leaving. So if you can make me leave, then I guess I'll leave. But otherwise, I guess we should probably just sit there. So that's where that ended. So,
Nice.
and
But she did get her, but she got her treatment. It wasn't smooth. It was a fight. It was arguing with a lot of people and fussing about me not wearing a mask and then trying to kick me out while I was sitting in there with her. But she did get the care she needed. And then our son just had his first real go around with allopathic medicine and surgery. And we actually had to fight for our son to not receive a donor tissue from an unknown donor for his knee reconstruction. They needed to take a part of his part of a hamstring to reconstruct some stuff, and we had to find a different physician who was willing to take his own hamstring and harvest his own and use it, as opposed to a vaccinated donor
Well, we didn't know.
that
He
we
had no
wouldn't
idea.
know, and
That's
they
right.
couldn't.
You have no
They
idea.
wouldn't guarantee us it was even a male. So we're like, we do not want female tissue being used on our male son. They couldn't do that. So we finally found a physician who was willing to do the surgery using his own tissue, and That was crazy, but we got it done, and he's recovering well. Didn't need blood products. We had to sign all this paperwork saying we did not want any blood products. We didn't want any emergency administration of blood or tissue or any of that kind of thing.
So it took a lot on her part, though. There was a lot of research and things to do, like what to do with the paperwork, what to put on the paperwork when you're, filling it out, adding your own section in there about, we refuse this, or we definitely do not want this. Make sure you're not, different things like that they, want to push on you afterwards. It's not either in the print or whatever. So making sure you try to have all those bases covered and just not let them bully you into doing what you know you don't want to do. And you have to stand and just, put your feet in the sand and say no, and dig in. And at the end of the day, though, you have to be able to decide if it comes to it, what are you going to do, and have that and know what you're going to do if the answer is not what you need.
I think we had a lot of practice when our kids were growing up because we had devised many plans as to what would happen if we were put into a situation where somebody told us our children were going to be removed from us, or my dad's a nurse, an RN, and they disowned our family. My parents have disowned our family.
Disown your family because they're not vaccinated? Can they see how healthy they are?
Yeah.
They could see that the whole time. Yeah. And
well, they never agreed with that lifestyle.
at the beginning of COVID,
really
they disowned us completely and made it known that they didn't want anything to do with us, that they were ashamed and embarrassed of the way we acted and behaved. And
we took a stand, though. We took a stand with the protesting and the things. Whatever. I think a lot of people we didn't want all the mandated stuff. We didn't feel it was that was right, and we just took a stand on it and said no.
But we had all those years from. Our daughter started out, she went to a private Christian school, a kindergarten and first grade before we started homeschooling. And so we had learned then, they told us she wouldn't be able to attend school if there was a measles outbreak. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. If you all are vaccinated and my kid's the only one not, how come she can't attend school? Aren't y'all safe? That didn't make any sense. And so we knew from kindergarten forward we would have to have a game plan should the need arise to either escape the United States or get away from medical tyranny if somebody tried to impede upon our lifestyle. And so when COVID happened, we had been in Canada when the lockdown initially started here in the United States, here in Ohio, and our children, it was the first time we had left our kids by themselves, and they weren't kids.
Sorry, COVID's our fault.
They were 19 and 13. And so we had to go through a big process to come back into the United States because that's the first week that the lockdowns had happened. And we knew right then and there, we're like, well, everything we planned for, we might just have to be doing it now. Might have to be escaping. But then our escape route ended up closing and being worse than the U.S. So I don't know. That plan backfired.
Yeah, I know what we're going to do. Okay, well, look, thank you. It's been really good fun talking to you both. And, well done you guys. Well done.
Thanks. Awesome.